Are you having a hard time crafting a message so powerful that people get enrolled to it? Well, this episode is going to be extremely powerful for you because we're talking about how to craft a message so powerful that you get to stand out because you stand for something. So keep listening. Hi, I'm Brandon Lucero, and you're about to experience the new way to thrive in business, entrepreneurship, and life by leaning into who you are, what you love, and standing up for what you want to create. Get ready, because this is where we go against the grain, say no to outdated society norms, and we say yes to change in order to create a happier, more fulfilled world. Welcome to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur. Today we're talking about messaging, but more specifically, how to stand up for what you believe in. As you guys know, messaging is my jam. Messaging is what we're really good at. It's what I've discovered I'm really good at. It's one of the foundations of what this company is built on. But really at the end of the day, messaging is also one of those things that a lot of entrepreneurs just don't take into consideration. You know, we hear from a lot of people and a lot of online gurus out there saying you guys need to focus on content, go push out a lot of content, and you'll build your audience. And although that is true, yes, content is going to help you build an audience. And when you have an audience, you can sell to that audience. And what happens is a lot of these online gurus, and I don't want this to come off as me saying what they're telling you is bad. They're literally just telling you what they did. But what we're going to talk about are the deeper layers underneath of what's actually going on. Because at the end of the day, the message is what's really important. The message is what's building the audience. The message is what's building the connection. And content is a vehicle to get that message out there. So think about right now, you're just listening to a podcast episode. If this podcast episode was not filled with a message that resonated with you or built some kind of connection or added value to you, you wouldn't listen to it. So isn't the fact that I'm doing content that's building the audience and the connection with you, it's what I'm saying inside of that content. Now, one of the things that I believe to my core is that as a business, especially a business like ours, if you're someone who has a service-based business, a course-based business, a program-based business, heck, even local businesses, I believe, and even bigger businesses will probably need to adapt to this in the future. But I believe that you're going to have to adapt some kind of deeper purpose or message into the company. And the reason why I think this is because, number one, it allows you to stand out. It builds a deeper connection, and it empowers you as the entrepreneur because, you know, we're entrepreneurs. There's going to be moments of hard times, down times, moments where it's going to be hard to get out of the bed in the morning. But when you have that message that is so powerful that you get up out of the day, no matter what happens, it's going to almost guarantee your success because you never give up. And that's how powerful a message is. A message can be that powerful. So a message, and the right message, has multiple benefits. It can empower you, it can empower your audience, it can help create change in the world, it can help build connection, and it allows you to stand out. So today what we're going to talk about is standing up for what you believe in and how it relates to business and how you can start to craft a message from that. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is really the deeper purpose. We're going to talk about the do's and the don'ts. We're going to talk about what you should have in a message. We're going to talk about steps on how to do all of this stuff. But when people come to me and they're like, okay, Brandon, this makes a lot of sense. I want to have like a message that people resonate with. I want people to connect with what I'm saying. Well, that's great. But the problem is that most people will stay very surface level. They'll stay very much results based. So let's say you're a copywriter, they say things like, I help people write more impactful copy, and that's how I'm making my change in the world. If you own a yoga studio, you'll probably say things like, we help people lose weight and stay fit. Or if you're someone who helps moms lose weight, you probably say, I help moms lose weight so they feel more confident. And all of that stuff is great. And although all of that stuff is true, all of that stuff is results based. It isn't something that people will actually rally behind. So no one's going to rally behind you because you help people write better copy. You're not going to get 10,000 people going, yes, we just need to teach people better copy. No. And the same thing with yoga. You're not going to get people rallying behind you because you help people lose weight, right? Or become more flexible. And the same thing with losing weight. They're not going to rally behind the fact that you just help people lose weight or gain confidence. But the thing that people will rally behind is what I call the deeper purpose. This is something where you take 10,000 people, they all go through your course, your program, or your service, or even your local business, they enter your local business, and they're going to get some kind of result. And that's what most people will say, this is our why, this is our purpose. They're going to get some kind of result. What I want you to look at is when 10,000 people, 10,000 or more people have the result that you promise, what effect does that create in the world? That's what I call the deeper purpose. And this is where we start to create a message that we believe in. This is where we stand out because we stand for something. This is where people start rallying behind our company. This is where we start to create a movement. Now, in order to do this, you have to kind of figure out what it is you do. You have to kind of figure out what change do you want to see in the world. You have to kind of figure out how does this relate to your offer, your service, your program. But one of the things, and we're going to start talking about the things not to do first. One of the things that when you discover this deeper purpose, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later in this episode, but when you start to uncover the deeper purpose, you tend to get very passionate about it because it's literally your purpose here on this planet. If you do it right, this is in total alignment of who you are, why you're here in this moment at this time. Now, what happens is what most people will do is they get so passionate about this that they focus less on what the deeper purpose is or the change that they want to see, and they focus more on making someone wrong for not having the same beliefs as them. And this is a very dangerous ground to walk. Because if your intention is just to go after and prove someone else wrong so that you could be right and your message is right, well, guess what? You did not have a message worth standing on. Because if the only way your message is validated is by proving someone else wrong, you're already operating in the wrong spot. And when we look at any big movement over the last 100 years, none of them really thrived because they proved someone else wrong, but more because they stood up for what they actually believed. They stood up for what they believed. And yes, if you stand up for what you believe, it's going to go against the thing that you might say is wrong, but you're not taking your energy and putting it towards proving someone else wrong. You're taking your energy and getting people enrolled into your message. It's a massive difference. You're empowering people versus proving someone else wrong, putting someone else down, standing on them so you can elevate yourself. And so there's a big difference between standing up for what you believe in and trying to prove someone else is wrong. The other reason why we can't go around trying to prove someone else wrong is because it's a victim mentality. Usually when you're trying to prove someone else wrong, you're going to talk about how they victimized you. And a victim is not a leader. A victim is not someone who's going to grow a thriving business. Look at any successful person out there. None of them are going to play the victim role. But the second you decide with your message to go prove someone else wrong, you now become the victim. And yes, people who will go and there might be people who will go and follow you, but those are going to be the same type of people that have been victimized. They're connecting with you because you're a victim on something and they are a victim on something. That's not a very empowering place to operate from. And look, at the end of the day, messaging is something that should be improving people's lives. It should be empowering other people. It should be ending suffering. That's what powerful messaging is all about. That's what standing up for what you believe in is all about. Remember, we're standing up for what we believe in. We're not standing on top of someone else and pushing them down so we can stand taller. And the next thing after that is we don't want to try to be right. Now, obviously, this is on the other side. Like if you're proving someone else, trying to prove someone else wrong, you're probably also trying to be right. There's a massive difference between trying to prove someone right versus showing flaws in the old ways that are causing suffering. So for example, if I came into this podcast episode and I said something like how-to content, doing that how-to content 100% of the time is one of the worst ways to build an audience. And I started to go into how I'm right. And I would say things like, well, look at this video over here. They did a motivational video over here and they saw really good success. And then they also, statistics show us this over here and our studies show us that, blah, 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 blah. I'm not really persuading or convincing anyone of anything other than just throwing statistics. And you have to understand the reason why people believe something is because they have a belief on it. And a lot of the times the beliefs have been formed subconsciously without them realizing it. So statistics aren't going to change this deep-rooted belief that they have. However, showing flaws in the belief or how the belief might not be the best service to them, that starts to persuade them. So instead, if I said things like, well, doing how-to content 100% of the time isn't how we grow an audience fast. I use Gary Vaynerchuk as a counterexample. I say, look at him. He didn't do any how-to content. And then I start to explain like, look, when you do 100% how-to content, you're the same as everyone else. All the other experts are now teaching the same content. So no wonder you blend in. So what I'm doing is finding areas of how the belief that they are holding is flawed. Now, it's a very fine line here, and it might take some thinking through because there is a slight difference between trying to be right versus focusing on the belief. So when you have a message that you want to stand up for, that you believe in, you have to look at all the counter messages and find the different ways that they're flawed. Because if you have something you believe in, you likely believe in it because the old way causes suffering, and it's your job to end that suffering. Now, the last thing that we don't want to do is be afraid. And this one's really powerful. And one of the reasons why we don't want to be afraid is because if you don't believe in your message or are courageous with your message or are a leader with your message, then nobody else will either. And the problem is when you're afraid, you're actually giving away your personal power. And you need to gain as much of your personal power as you possibly can, especially when building a business. And usually when you're afraid, you're either afraid of judgment, you're afraid of what people are going to think. But when you have full control of your personal power, that means your internal state is in your control and not control of external people. And a lot of the times we start to think very individualized when it comes to our message. I'm the only one that's going to have this. I'm going to face this. I have to go out and do this. Everyone's afraid of me. I'm the only one that's afraid. They're so intimidating. And it's so internal where you never look externally at what everyone else is going through. And I went through this program called Landmark, which some of you guys may have gone through. And they did this exercise in Landmark. If you haven't gone through Landmark and you plan on it, just mute out the next 2 minutes so I don't ruin this for you. But they do this exercise where they have you close your eyes and they tell you, imagine to the person to the right of you, and imagine the person to the left of you are saying the worst things about you, the things you're the most insecure about. They're screaming it at you. They're yelling it at you. And we did this exercise for 45 minutes, and the person's walking around the room, the instructor's walking around the room, and she's screaming at you. They're saying the worst things to you, the most things you're most insecure about, the worst things that have ever been said to you. They're screaming it in your ear. I mean, it was intense. There were some people that broke down and started crying. And it went on for 45 minutes, but the exercise ends with the instructor saying, the person to the right of you and the person to the left of you are saying these things that you're so insecure about, that are hurting your feelings. And she kept saying it over and over. And then you start to realize she kept saying the person to the right of you and the person to the left of you. And then all of a sudden you realize, whoa, I'm the person to the right of the person on this side, and I'm the person. So the person that was next to you was afraid of you, and you were afraid of them. And you start realizing that everyone's fear is such an individualized thing, and you never realize every single person on this planet has those same exact fears. They all have insecurities. They all have their own stuff going on. It's, we tend to get into this thing where we're below everybody else and everyone else has it figured out. Everyone else is going to judge us. Everyone else is, and all you're doing is you're giving your personal power away to everyone else. And one of the switches that has flipped for me on that day is I realized, and I walked through the mall and I looked at everyone and I remembered the way I felt when the person to the right of me and the person to the left of me was yelling these things at me. And then I realized I was the person to them doing that we're all equal. And the amount of compassion that I had for just a human being walking through the mall and staring at everyone was massive. And now I'm not afraid of my message because I realize everyone is equal. We're all afraid of certain things. We all have internal battles. We're all equals. There's nothing to be afraid of. And so I've gotten over that. And so if you really want to stand up for what you believe in and you want to create a message off of it, you have to start to not be afraid and realize that everyone else is just as afraid as you. They all in different, might be in different ways, but every single human on this planet has some kind of fear. There is not a person not living in some kind of fear or worry on this planet. Every single one of them has it. And you're in what's happening is you're not getting your message out there because you're afraid that they're going to do something, and you're afraid of people who are also afraid. So gain your personal power back, and now you're a more powerful person starting to deliver this message. So let's start to talk about how do you craft this message? Well, the first thing is we want to be unique. And one of the reasons why I really strive for people to stand up for what you believe in is because not everyone is going to believe the same thing to a T. So the second you start to craft a message based on something that you stand up for or you believe in, you start to create something that is unique. Now, the other part of this, which goes into being afraid, is that most people won't do this because most people will let the fear get the best of them. So the second you start incorporating this into your company, you not only become unique because no one else is going to be talking about the same thing as you, but you're also doing something that most businesses won't do. And I've talked about this on this podcast. Like, I want to open a local business. And one of the reasons why is because I want to start applying a lot of these concepts to local-based businesses. I want to start taking our skills of growing businesses, generating sales, and use them in different avenues. But most businesses won't do this. Most local businesses start because the business owner has a trade, they have a skill, and then they never focus on the outside things. However, and I use this example in a past episode, imagine you were a coffee shop and the whole coffee shop had a message and they stood up for what they believe in, which was parents. Like maybe it was all about parents. The names were the drinks were named after parents and child type stuff and having kids type things. And there's a whole theme, but the message, the deeper purpose was we help parents become better parents because we give them a break. We let them release. We let them talk to other humans. That's a message that almost every single parent would relate to. Who do you think parents are going to go to when they need a cup of coffee? Are they going to continue going to Starbucks? Sure, some of them might, but the majority of them are going to go to this coffee shop because it's unique and it forms a connection. And it forms a connection because they're unique. They're standing up for what they believe in. They're running an entire business off of creating some kind of benefit in the world. They're ending some kind of suffering for someone, and they craft a message off of it. Now, the second thing that we want to do is you want to find a message that's so powerful because there's a lot of up and downs inside of entrepreneurship. And I can tell you right now that having a message that's more powerful than you or has a deeper purpose in it makes it 10 times more likely for you to get up in the morning. Look, I've been in debt, $40,000 in debt. I've killed different businesses. I've killed different brands. I've had a lot of quote unquote failures, what people would classify as failures, happen in my life. But I get up every single day. And especially now, I get up every single day because I am crystal clear on what my message is. I know what we stand up for, and I fight for that. And if you guys don't know what our deeper purpose is, I'm assuming if you've been listening for a while, you understand and you know our deeper purpose is changing society, taking the norms inside of society that cause suffering. Basically, for me, it's mainly what is success. Our kids have been taught and we've been taught and indoctrinated into success means you go to school, you get a degree, you come out on debt, and then you have to work a 9 to 5. And I'm saying that's a massive society norm that we don't need anymore and actually causes more suffering because now people are forced to go do things that they don't want to do because they think that's normal. So what I do, and with messaging, is I give people the tools to break down society norms so the new generation has a better place to go live. And that fuels me every single day. When we have those losses or those things that didn't go as planned, it's 10 times easier for me to get up in the morning because that purpose literally fuels me. And that moves me into the next thing is I'm aligned with my purpose. So a lot of you might be sitting there going, well, I don't know, Brandon. I don't know how to find the purpose. I don't know what it is that I believe. And all you have to do is go inside. And not inside your house, but like inside you, because it's there. And a lot of people ask me, well, how do I get aligned and how do I find my purpose? Well, it's when things become smooth. You're literally talking about the things that you want to talk about. It's as simple as that. Don't overcomplicate it. If you're talking about things in your content that you don't want to talk about, guess what? You're not aligned. You're not in purpose. So you want to get there. And I'll talk about how we can get there in a second. Now, the next thing we need with our message, and the thing that I love about having a message that you stand up for, is it allows you to navigate things strategically. Now, you're probably not going to understand this unless you actually go through the process and do it. Again, this is something that comes from the knowing, not knowledge. But this is something where when you have a message that is so profound, that drives you every single day, that you understand on a deep level, and you actually tap into a real deeper purpose, it allows you to navigate strategically because you literally don't care about a lot of things that people tend to worry about. So when we go into a launch or we go through a lot of different things inside of our company, we go through planning, I am able to look at my company from a 10,000 foot or bird's eye view looking down and allow me to navigate at strategically because I'm very clear on what my purpose is. I'm very clear on what our mission is. I'm very clear on what I want to do. I'm very clear on the suffering that we're ending. And now all I need to do is move the pieces together to make sure that it happens. I'm looking from bird's eye view down and going like, here's what my message is. Here's what we need to do. Here's how I want to execute on. Here's what I want to talk about. How do I move these pieces together? Versus most people sitting there wondering, what am I going to talk about today? How am I going to sell to this audience? How am I going to grow an audience? How am I going to do X, Y, and Z? How do I say this? And this doesn't really resonate with me. You're not looking bird's eye view because you're not clear on all the stuff. You're not clear on the foundational stuff. And when you're not clear on the foundational stuff, you're stuck in the foundation. But when you have the foundation, you can build something up and look down on how to build the rest of it. The next one is that it's going to force you to grow. So what I love about messaging and standing up for what you believe in is you also have to understand that it's going to change. So this is why when people procrastinate on their message, they don't put their message out there, all of that stuff, they don't realize in order to get to Z, like let's say you're at A and you're at Z, you have to go through 24 alphabets, right? Or whatever it is, because I think there's 26 minus the 2, so 24. You have to go through 24, and it doesn't matter how long. Like it could take you 2 years to go through 24. It could take you 2 days to go through all 24 if you want. So what happens is most people will sit here and they'll think about it, and not realizing that Z actually doesn't ever happen. It moves around on you because what's going to happen is you're going to go through the alphabet. You're going to get to L, and L is going to give you a realization, or it's going to give you an epiphany or something else. And you're going to have all these dots connecting. You're like, oh my gosh, like that's changing. And that's happened with me. So 2.5 years ago when we started the Video 4X Effect, our mission or our vision was to help entrepreneurs fix video inside of their business. And then now it's completely shifted to messaging. Can you imagine what my life and business would look like had it taken me 2 years to finally do that first launch or to start putting out content, which by the way, it does take some entrepreneurs 2 years to do. And if you're listening to this podcast, it might have taken you 2 years to do. And the problem is that messaging will evolve. What you're talking about today likely will not be the exact same thing you're going to talk about in 5 or 10 years. You're going to have to go through all of those steps. But what happens is those steps start to bring more clarity of the message and allows the message to evolve. And when your message evolves, you evolve. You start to grow. And this is why I love messaging. People look at messaging as if it's just a marketing thing that you're going to do inside of your company. And I look at it as a breathing organism. It's a work of art. It's this thing that evolves and changes, and you change with it. It allows changes and gives you purpose, and it makes you aligned and allows people to connect with you. And so you have to understand messaging is going to force you to grow. And especially if you're trying to find that deeper purpose, it's going to force you to go down deep and figure out what is the actual purpose. Why are you here on this planet? What are you here to change? What are you here to talk about? And that brings me to the last piece is obviously if we're going to build a business off of this, we want to look at how this is all going to be connected together in order to generate sales. So usually what's going to happen is your deeper purpose will be a result of the service or your course or your program, meaning that when I told you my deeper purpose was to change a lot of society norms, well, guess how we do that? With the Video 4X Effect. So the deeper purpose becomes a reality because of my service and because of my program. So that's how you connect them together so that you make money. Now, you may find that you discover your deeper purpose and your meaning, and it's not aligned with your offer. Well, you might need to change your offer a little bit. And we've changed our offer over the years as well. So again, you can't be set on this is the way things are supposed to be. You have to actually get inside and sit with it and realize what it is you actually want to do. What's the deeper purpose? What's the reason? What's the message behind it? Now, how do we do this? How do we find it? Well, the first thing is action. So I just talked about those steps. I talked about like you're at A and you want to go to Z. There's 24 steps you're going to have to go through. Now, what's going to happen is most people will stay at A, and this might be you, and they try to figure it out from A. And they don't realize that as soon as you get to B, it's going to bring a new level of awareness, a new perspective, a new experience. Then you get to C and then D. And what happens is that brings the clarity. And you guys have examples of this in your life, but you just don't do it. So for example, we've all been there where we're writing in our journal or something. We're writing like an essay. We're writing something. And the deeper we get into writing, it's like bam, 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 bam. All these ideas hit your head. All these ideas come and you're like almost to the point where you can't write it fast enough or explain it fast enough and you're scrambling to write it down. That explosion, that thought explosion would not have happened had you not started writing in your journal or doing whatever it is that you did. So by staying stuck at A, you're almost guaranteeing that you will not find the message that you believe in. You will not find how to stand out because you stand for something. So you have to absolutely take action. And we did a podcast episode on how waiting is one of the most detrimental things any entrepreneur can do to their business. And it really is, because you miss the clarity. You miss the realizations. You miss the new lens. You miss the growth that brings all of that clarity. The next one is silence. Now, I'm going to say something and then I'll have to give it a little bit of an explanation. But when we are creating a different message, you're trying to find your purpose, you're trying to do all of that, you're trying to create change. You're trying to create something different. And you can't create something outside the box when you're inside the box. So what does that mean? Well, right now, you have an idea of how things should be, how things need to look. You've been indoctrinated into things. We have society norms. We have this world around us that this is the way it is. And what we try to do is we try to stay inside that world. We have all these thoughts. We have people coming to us. We have all this stuff like, oh my gosh, I got to pay the bills. Oh, my wife said this to me, or this person said that to me. Oh, this person didn't listen to me. This person disrespected me. Oh my gosh, I love this person so much. And we have all these thoughts all day long. This is the way it's supposed to be. Yada, yada, yada. That's the box. However, if you want to create a message that creates change, how on earth are you supposed to be able to see the change, realize the change when you're trapped inside the box of this is the way it is? So in order to create something new, we have to create it outside of the box. And one of the ways to do that is to get silence. Silence the box. Silence the world. You silence the world, you can change the world. You start to silence the world around you. You start to silence the thoughts. You start to silence, this is the way it used to be. You start to silence, this person said this to me. You start to silence, this will never work out. You start to silence all the doubts. You literally turn your brain off. All thoughts, all actions, the world that you currently know it, stops. You silence it. It takes a while to get to this point because it's really hard, but you can. And I'm not necessarily even talking about meditation here. Okay, I'm not talking about meditation. I'm just talking about silence the mind. And again, we have examples of this all the time. When you guys sit in the shower and then all of a sudden you create the best argument in the entire world of this fight you got in earlier, a lot of those things come because you were silent. A lot of the people call them shower thoughts. You're sitting in the shower. You're not really thinking about anything. The water's hitting you. You're kind of quiet. You're silent. Then boom, 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 boom. All these thoughts start coming into your head. This is where we create from. And I do this every night. This is part of my nightly ritual, is I spend at least 30 minutes at night and sometimes during the day in silence, and I keep a journal next to me. So when I'm done sitting in silence, every thought that came to me, I write it in my journal. This is how the video 4X effect was created. I literally sat in my office for 3 days trying to be silent, and then all of a sudden, boom, 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 it hit. And to this day, I still don't think I actually created the video 4X effect. I think it was a gift from somewhere. Then they just handed it to me because I didn't think of it. It just appeared in my head. And a lot of times thoughts will appear in your head. For example, you guys probably have thoughts right now that you don't want inside of your head. You probably have these things like you think it and you're like, oh my God, why did I think that? Where did that come from? So why can't we tap into that for the answers? And a lot of times the answers will come in the silence. The next thing is when you get those answers, you have to listen and trust. I will tell you guys right now, a lot of the times when you're sitting in silence and all of a sudden you get a thought in your head, and for me, I can only tell you what my experience is. Sometimes I even hear voices in my head, but it sounds like me talking to me, but I'm not talking to me, if that makes any sense. But you have to listen and trust to those. You can call it intuition. You can call it messages from God, the divine, the universe, whatever you want. I don't really care because I don't know where they come from, but I do know they happen. You have to listen and trust to it. And again, that's operating outside the box, because inside the box tells us, well, that's just a thought. It doesn't mean anything. It's just something that popped up in your head. Realistically, we have to do this. Realistically, we should probably talk about this. No one's going to resonate with that. And we start going back inside the box. You have to listen and trust. If you're going to operate outside the box, you have to trust outside the box. And you know what's beautiful about this is that when you can operate there, the box of what society is or the world is starts to expand, because you're operating outside of it. You're making it a normal thing. You're growing a following. People are listening. It becomes normal, becomes the new normal. Well, guess what? That box now gets spread. It gets expanded. It gets bigger. And this is literally how I believe we change the world, is by making the box bigger. We discover outside the box. We expand the box to now include it. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys. And the last thing is finding the deeper purpose. If you really want to find that thing that's going to allow you to stand out because you stand for something, is you want to look for the deeper purpose. It's not the result you bring. It's what happens when 10,000 or 100,000 people have the result you promise. They go out in the world and it creates some kind of effect. What happens when that's created? That's the deeper purpose. Now you start to talk about your deeper purpose inside of your content. Well, those are what we call connection videos. Those are going to build rapport and trust with your audience. So as you guys know, we have 3 types of content. We have connection videos, we have how-to content, and thought reversals that ultimately create this beautiful effect that creates messaging. But at the end of the day, if you guys want to start to create something and stand out because you stand for something and stand up for what you believe in, you have to start to focus on not being afraid, gaining your personal power back. You have to make sure that's connected to your offer so that you can make money off of it, because the more money you make, the bigger impact you can have. But really, at the end of the day, you have to do these 4 things. You have to take action. You have to get silent. You have to listen and trust. And you have to really discover your deeper purpose. And your deeper purpose usually is going to be the thing that puts you in alignment, puts you in purpose of what you should be doing on this planet right now. And again, this isn't something where you guys can just sit here and think it through and go and figure out in the next 30 minutes. This is a journey. This is something that you have to put into action. You have to go and try it and test it and see it. Let those brain explosions happen. You have to sit there. You got to put in the freaking work in order to do this, which is why most people won't do it. 90% of the people watching the podcast right now will not go and do this, but the 10% who do are going to see massive growth in their audience. They're going to start to stand out. They're going to start to be unique. They're going to connect with their audience on a deeper level, a level that most people will never reach, because this is where true connection and true messaging and alignment and purpose stems from. So I encourage you guys to do this. I encourage you guys to go play around with it. And when you do, I want you to go to the New Generation Entrepreneur Facebook group, not the podcast. We're on the podcast right now, but the New Generation Entrepreneur Facebook group, and let me know what your experience is like. Did you have any answers come? Did you sit in the silence? Are you getting clear on your message? Go over to the Facebook group and let me know. And if you guys enjoyed this episode, head over to iTunes. Leave us a review over there. And if you do, we have a special gift for you guys. So if you head over to iTunes right now, leave us a 5-star review. You send it over to us. We have a gift. You can email support@soldofvideo.com and we'll send it over to you guys. So 2 call to actions. Go to the Facebook group. Let me know what happens when you follow those 4 steps. And go ahead and leave us that review. So that's it for this one. We'll see you guys on the next episode. Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, go below, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you click on that bell icon and get notified every time we drop a new episode. Now, if you're looking for the show notes, we have them linked underneath this video, as well as our social media handles and some links to free training and offers that we drop from time to time to help you guys even further. So go check those out if you're interested, and thank you so much for tuning in to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.